Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, where today we will be interviewing Most Worshipful Brother James C. Norton, Jr., Grand Master of Washington.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions via our website at theworkingtoolspodcast.com.
Today on the Working Tools Podcast, we have three-quarters of our usual hosts. I'm Matt Appel. I'm a Mason in Mill Creek, my Mill Creek Lodge in Montlake Terrace, Washington. Excuse me. I'm messing my own up here. We have Craig Graham, who is with Calamelca Lodge number 160 in Vernon, British Columbia, and David Colbeth from King Solomon number 60 in Auburn, Washington. And we have, as I said earlier, our Most Worshipful Brother James C. Norton, Jr., Grand Master of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Washington. Jimmy, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So, as we've said before, this is sort of a casual conversation about Masonry, and we sort of like to open up with, sort of what's your Masonic story? How did you get involved with Masonry, and how did you end up where you are?
Kind of started at birth. My grandfather, who was a major in the army that served over in Germany and Company B in Hamburg, had a Scottish Rite, 32nd degree Scottish Rite ring on that I was just enthralled with as a kid. And that generation didn't talk about it. And as I grew up, fishing, spending weekends with them, that kind of thing. His brother, my Uncle John, took me to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think it was probably about 12. And he had a similar rig. And he talked a little bit about it, but not a lot, that it was, a group of men that are making a difference in the world. And you can learn more about it when you grow up, kind of thing. And after I lost my grandfather, I hadn't started my journey in Masonry yet. And I asked my mom and dad about it, and they really didn't answer anything. They didn't know where it was, that kind of a thing. And I started my journey, originally started in 86, I think it was. I'd been out of high school for about 4 years and was working in an electrical wholesaler. And one of the maintenance foremen from Everett Community College walked in to pick up some material, and I saw a ring similar. And I said, my grandfather had a ring like that. And they said, what's it about? So we talked for a little while. And I asked them, I said, so what's the, Masonic fraternity about? I've been around it ever since I was born, but they didn't really talk about it that much. And said that we'd go grab lunch on Monday. And Monday came and went, so did Tuesday and Wednesday, and I didn't see him again. And on Thursday, one of the other guys that works for Everett Community College came in, and I asked about him. And he asked me, he just looked at me with that broken heart look. And he goes, you didn't hear it? I'm like, no. And he died of a massive coronary over the weekend. And that's kind of where it stopped. And about 2 years later, I was playing in a golf tournament and was sitting at the table after, prior to the finals, which I had made. And brother sitting right across from me had the exact same ring. And I looked at him and I said, I've got one of those in the family. And he goes, you're a Mason? I said, no. I said, my grandfather was and my uncle was, but it skipped my dad's generation because they just didn't talk about it. And he said, well, are you interested in finding out more? And I said, well, yeah, I tried, and he explained to him the story. And he's like, well, he goes, I'll have one of the guys from the local lodge give you a call when you get home. And when I came home, I had a Post-it note on my door to, reach out to brother. And I called him, and he's like, I live right down the street. You want to grab a cup of coffee? So I went over to his house and we talked about it. And it was about 3 days later, I had brothers from Edmonds Lodge 165, which is where I initially started my entire process, come up and took me down to the lodge, hung out with the brethren a couple of times, and then, asked the real question, how do I become part of this? And got a petition, filled it out, did a full investigation, and went down when they were balloting on it. And it was a widow's night, and they had some of the ladies that were there, and just as kind could be. And they took care of me during the meeting, and they came down and said that I had been voted unfavorably, and took me upstairs and did my first degree. And I haven't slowed down ever since then. It's really been something I'm beyond passionate about, and truly blessed now that I have an opportunity to do it from the position the brethren have given me. It's opened doors that I never thought would have been open, but it also provides that unbridled opportunity to share what Masonry is all about, and have those conversations with members that may have been disenfranchised over the years of opportunities that are still available for them, and how they can make a difference in changing how that road goes for anybody that follows them and the one that they're currently on.
I meant to say that in the interest of full disclosure in the beginning there, that actually most worshipful brother Jimmy is a member of my lodge. Mm-hmm. So I claim credit.
Yes. Yeah. I am. I'm a member of 5. I admitted out of Edmonds a few years ago, mostly because of having an opportunity to be deputy for the Grand Master in the district. My traveling, being on different committees and stuff, just truly prevented me from being able to go down to the lodge. And as I was traveling, I found other lodges that worked with my schedule, but also appreciated and needed some assistance that I could offer. So I ended up becoming a member of Appel in Appel, which now I think is going to have a unique opportunity, because most worshipful brother Chuck McQuarrie, who was our Grand Master that we lost, was a member there. I'm a lifetime member there, and I am Grand Master. And Lord willing, for Count Rise, right worshipful brother Chris Haynes, who is our senior Grand Warden, will be Grand Master. So our lodge will have the blessing of having 3 Grand Masters coming out of that, and coming out of our district, which has been a cradle for incredibly good men who helped make us be better and showed us an opportunity that some of the jurisdiction doesn't have. And that's one of the messages that I travel with everywhere I go, is that, the brethren can see themselves in us where I couldn't see myself in anybody in the line from 1998 when I started into early 2000s, late 2000s, that really resembled me, that worked, married, had children. It didn't represent a lot of who I was at that point in time. And I've seen that evolve over the last 10 years, that if you're really passionate about this and really want to help lead the charge for it, you have the opportunity.
That's pretty incredible. You were voted on and then had your degree the same night. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I've heard that before. That's awesome.
Yeah, they had it pretty well. From what I understand, that I understood later, was that the process was going over probably a month, maybe a month and a half, of meeting and greeting, getting together for some of the events, volunteering at events that they did in town. Both with the Chamber of Commerce, both with the Boys and Girls Club, that kind of a thing. So it was a lot of interaction prior to the petition being provided. They had already done the investigating report, but prior to the response coming back, and one of the brothers called me and said, "Hey, I'd like to have you come down to the lodge. We've got a ladies' night going. You'll have dinner with them, and then we'll kind of," as he said, Phil Jansis, he's like, "and we'll just kind of see how it goes." I'm like, "Okay," and went down and yeah, haven't slowed down since. It was amazing. They had it all set, ready to go. The anticipation for it being favorable, and hit the ground running. It was amazing.
Well, it goes to show they did a good job of bringing you in, like you're talking about, having them interact with you and you interact with them, so they got to know you, and that's whether we call it a 6 steps or some fashion of it, it's an opportunity for everybody to get to know each other and understand how we operate and who we are as people, and yeah, that's good.
I think it's imperative, especially at this point in time. We're getting inquiries now that we don't know. They're from potentially different states, different countries that are coming in, and getting to know the person and the family. I know there's been a lot of evolution in, to be one, ask one, but more especially to get to know them a little bit. And, you brothers have heard me say this before, that they're not the kids we grew up with. They're not the people we've been around and went to school with. And, an inquiry, my opinion, an inquiry should be met at a neutral spot, have the conversation with them, get to know them a little bit, find out about their family, find out about their work history, where else they've done, and, what brought them to Masonry. We have our background checks in place so that we can at least have another layer of verification. Get them engaged in what the lodge is doing. I mean, if the currency suits them, what the lodge is doing, whether it's community, whether it's youth, whether it's service projects or whatever, you've got them hooked. And then once you get the process started, ensure you're nurturing, empower. That's one of my biggest things, is that entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and newly raised master masons, if we empower them when they start off coming in, give them a task, give them something to understand. Just get them engaged and get their families engaged. Have that open conversation with them that they're included in this, although they can't participate in the meetings, but they're included in this. What can we have for a value add for somebody that's got young children? Well, you got other brothers in the lodge that have young children. You can have play dates with them down the lodge. You can do all kinds of arts and crafts and stuff with them, but just get it to where it's all inclusive and not just, oh my gosh, my husband's leaving again on Tuesday for 3.5 hours and that kind of thing. And you get the buy-in and the encouragement.
So, Jimmy, have you seen examples locally in Washington where that's happened and it's been quite successful?
Quite a bit. There's, the current inquiries that we're getting now. We've done a really good job of helping educate every corner of our state and even the other states that are doing the same program. When you get the inquiry, the Grand Lodge is putting them, depending on where their zip code is, to what we call prospect managers. Prospect managers are typically the deputies of the Grand Masters in those districts, and then they'll make initial contact with them, find out a little bit more. Most of them are having a conversation. What are you interested in? What's your interest in masonry? What are your hobbies, kinds of things? And then we really are encouraging them, if there's 3 or 5 lodges in the district, to reach out to all 5 of them, all 3 of them, because every single lodge, no matter what jurisdiction they're in, has a different flavor. Some are esoteric, some are community, some are youth, some are about the work and fellowship. It just find what their currency is, because I've seen so many over the years that get pigeonholed to one lodge that they want to go to, they want to send them to, they want to send them to, without taking that pause for a moment, that is this best for the brother? And I think that's really floated at the top now more than anything. Is this best for that potential brother that feeds whatever currency it is, whether it's youth, community, it doesn't matter, that is going to be supported for longevity. It's not about numbers. And we've got a lot of numbers that are coming in, but it's not about numbers. Are we servicing them in a manner that they need? And I think as long as we do that fair amount, it's going to be a win-win. The prospect managers that they have at the lodges, one of the things that we ask, it's not the secretary, it's not the master, and I strongly encourage every prospect manager to truly be either your newest entered apprentice, a fellow craft, or the newest master mason, because they're giddy. They just went through it. And as long as that experience is positive, that's a positive role model for anybody that's interested in it.
Yeah, ironically, was not our newest master mason, but he's a pretty new master mason. We're just getting him lined up to be our prospect manager, ironically. Yeah, he's excited about it. Same idea. He went to Lodge Leadership Retreat and lit a fire, and he's been to other events. He went to England. One of our brothers is a dual member of a Grand Lodge of a lodge in England, and so we went on a trip over there with him, and he's just gung ho, ready to rock and roll. So it's really great to see these guys excited and want to participate. And he's the kind of guy. I'm master of the lodge this year, and I asked the guys to, kind of do your duty. Look at the Lodge Officer's Handbook and do what you're supposed to be doing, setting up lodge, things like that. Well, he gets there early and sets it up all on his own. He's just that kind of guy. He likes,
and that's you need to encourage that, and what I talked about a little bit earlier when I started my journey, that wasn't paramount. I mean, that wasn't first, it was done. And I think, we missed the boat on it. We missed the boat on it a lot, throughout our jurisdiction. And it's one of those things that I try to, now that I have the opportunity and the honor, I try to remind them that if we're not putting them and setting them up for success, we're going to fail as a craft. If we've done our job and life changes and they go somewhere else, we've still done our job. But if we fail at it, and I think we have in the past, it's significantly improved, that we still have more work to do. Because if anything you do in life, if you're getting something out of it, your input is valued, you feel valued, you're able to make a difference in an event or something else that's going on, you're going to want to come back. When that goes away, you're not going to want to. Why would you? And I think making sure that we're cognizant of that in everything that we do, because I mean, I'll tell you, when my girlfriend at the time, which is my wife, and we were going together, we were in Florida, and I had my square and compass, one shirt on, which I wear everywhere. We were done at SeaWorld. She needed to use the restroom, and I sat down and just kind of hanging out. And the young lady came up. I think her son was probably 4, maybe 5, and asked if I could watch it for me. And I said, sure. And Kim had come out of the restroom, and she's like, who's this? I'm like, I don't know. The young lady asked if I could watch her son for a little bit and let you use the restroom. And then, the lady came out of the restroom a few minutes later, and, Kim honestly asked her, because she wasn't familiar with the fraternity, none of her family was. And she asked her, she goes, why would you be comfortable having my husband or my boyfriend at the time watch your son? And she just kind of smiled, and she goes, he's a Mason. And she goes, well, yeah, he's the master of the lodge and that kind of thing. And she goes, I was a Job's daughter. So if I'm not comfortable with a Mason, who can I be comfortable with? And that was the first kind of a realization from somebody that's not familiar with the craft, what it really means to be one, and if we're ever to walk and act as such, that's never been lost on me from day one. And I think that's part of what, my message has been with my team anyways, that we always are. It's not just in the lodge room. It's how we are seen in the community for being the ones that are going to continue to make the right decision in the light and in the dark in every aspect of what we do in life.
I really like that's a neat story because it shows the fine thread of things, especially the symbol, and just how it weaves into your story about how just a simple symbol as a ring kept drawing you back to the fraternity. Well, of course, you had some confidence in your grandfather, who he was as a man. These other guys that you met didn't really know anything about him necessarily, but you saw the ring and you saw the symbol and you just assumed they must have the same integrity and same values that your grandfather had. And most likely saw some of those coming through in their actions, or you may not have opened the dialogue with them, I would guess.
Yeah. I mean, they were always a cut above. And I think the thing that really impressed me more than anything, it didn't matter what the circumstances were, whether they were heated, whether they were accidental, it didn't make a bit of difference. They were just level in all of them. And, every now and then, and I saw it a couple of times, when we were fishing with my grandfather in Westport, issues at the dock, issues getting the boat out, that kind of thing. He would always pause for a minute before he would go over the edge. And that pause, I know without reservation, was because he was a member of the fraternity and he took his obligations to heart in everything that he did. And I learned from that. And it's just having that difference as a human being, to me, that's coupled with everything that the fraternity offers throughout the globe, that is supposed to make us different, and how we apply it in our lives daily, whether it's work or otherwise, is not, it's not interchangeable. I mean, you can't be tangent and brim and fire from 8 to 5 and then, walk the straight and narrow. It carries over into everything that you do and how you approach people. And I've seen it in boardrooms. I've seen it with what I do for a living, that, after we've had some interesting and challenging conversations with government agencies and military and stuff like that, that I've gotten a call from some of the senior design and senior engineers that are, so you're a traveling man, huh? And it's like, I am. Like, I could tell, and I think that is part of the beauty of the craft. We're different for a reason. And even if I wasn't, I already had that quality. And that also creates the opportunity for the conversation.
So you're not retired then? You're still working?
No, I'm still working.
What kind of work do you do, or would you have to kill us if you told us? Well,
No. I'm a electrical project manager. I've been with North Coast, which is purchased by Sonopar 3 years ago now, which is the world's largest family-owned corporation. But I primarily focus on infrastructure and military for everything electrical. We do military bases around the world, and my wife has heard me out on the deck for team meetings at 2:00 our time, because that's the time it is in Guam to get things done. But it's an opportunity I never thought I would ever have. I specialized in diesel mechanics coming out of school. I was top in the state for fuel injector systems. Planned on going into the military, and because of accidents and injuries when I was a kid growing up from soccer and everything else, I didn't have primary joint, which was my shoulder, surgically repaired, which put me on a high list of not being qualified. Fought for 4 years to try to get in. Was finally given a medical, inability to be part of, and then went, what the heck? And I happened to be part-timing at Denny's up on Evergreen Way, and gentleman came in and said he liked how I dealt with people, gave me his business card, which was for Consolidated Electrical Distributors in Everett. Had enough with part-time stuff, gave him a phone call, put me on a truck 2 days later, and almost 40 some odd years later, here I am.
Wow. So when you say guys, you aren't talking about the Masons, you're talking about military guys. I get it now.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm a fellow Denny worker too when I was in high school, by the way. So it's a little connection there.
Exactly. No, if you're familiar with Everett, Denny's was right next to Black Angus. We
Sure.
sit down and go over to Black Angus when we get off work, have a good time. I thought it was kind of interesting that didn't know anything. And I didn't even know there was an electrical wholesaler that existed. It wasn't anything in my world. Never needed it. Never thought about it. And then I just really leaned in hard. I'd be delivering material. I'd be asking the guys on the job site, what is this? Where does it go? How does it work? Kinds of things. And it's opened up doors that I could have never imagined. When North Coast started creating what was called originally then the Construction Services Group, they were looking for some of the best of the best. And when it came to distribution equipment, I was, in my own mind, I was wicked good. In the industry's mind, I was very good and a step above. And I got asked to come down and talk to them about it. So I drove down to Bellevue, had a duplex I had up in Marysville, and met with the manager and primary boss for the new group, and knew him for 3 years and didn't know that this is what they had gone to do, and got hired on the spot. Was working 6:30 to 3:30 in Bellevue, living in Marysville, and about 2 years later they transferred us to Seattle, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not making that drive. So I bought the house in Edmonds Yeah, I haven't looked back. It's similar that I do in the craft. It's about giving and teaching, and I think that's one of the things that I love is that the team we have now, which covers all of the kind of West Coast, just being a mentor for them, because been there, done that. Experience is invaluable, and being able to share that. And when we get new team members come in, a lot of times it's like, well, how long have you been here? I'm like 35 years. And they're like, I'm not even that old. And I'm like, does it matter? it doesn't. But yeah, it's been a blessing. Now I get to go, like I said, go back into military and infrastructure heavily, which gives me the opportunity to work remote. And that's one of the only ways that I can do this. And it would be hard pressed if somebody has a hard, 8 to 5 job just because of the amount of inquiries you get during the day, but it is doable. And I think I make sure that I tell people that when you set the parameters, if you have the honor to do this, it's from 8 to 5, I work, and I've got an auto response that I send when I'm getting things during the day. In a meeting, I'll call you after 4, kind of a thing. But it's find that balance.
It's a great story, though, your journey there. I always tell people that you don't have to don't hate your job. You don't have to like it, but don't hate it, because you never know what's going to happen. I didn't plan anything in my own career that way, and it's worked out just fine. Don't every minute that I've where I'm existing right now, everything that happened before led to this moment.
100%, even the failure,
including my journey in masonry. It's just so it's always interesting to hear other people's stories in that regard.
Well, I think in both David and Matt have heard me when I'm talking with our youth groups, especially when I'm talking with our youth group leaders, that we have to provide a secure environment where people can fail, because they're going to, but learn from it. Because there has not been one successful person that I've ever met in my lifetime that has never failed at something, ever. Because that's where you learn. We need to provide that environment. And I had it for the first 15, 20 years of my career. And I had it all in my life growing up with my dad as a coach and everything else, that you're going to fail. But if you're in a nurturing environment that you learn from, and you learn to change with it, and you understand and don't repeat it, then you're going to have those building blocks for your foundation to be more solid as you grow and you grow older, and then you become the one that they're looking to. And, again, with our youth groups, we have to provide that for them. Both the young men and the young women are not really always coming from, a stable household. They need to learn their environment, learn how to interact with others, have those conversations, make mistakes. But that environment is there for a purpose and a reason, to allow them to learn from their mistakes in an environment that is nurturing and encourage them to continue to try to grow and you're going to make more mistakes. Because that's how you're going to learn. And then when you hit that sweet spot, you just sit back and smile because you contributed to it, because they're set for life.
And I would like to think that we've just hit the sweet spot of how long this episode should be. How about that transition? So, in the interest of keeping things to a half an hour or so, we're going to wrap up here. But as usual, please check out the comments section on our post and such, and feel free to leave comments. And on behalf of David and the absent Steve and Craig and myself, most worshipful, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. I've never done one, so hopefully it went well.
Yes, sir. And we're hoping you can stick around for one more episode so we can pelt you with more questions.
Yeah.
Excellent. So look forward to next week, where we'll have part 2 of our interview with most worshipful brother Jimmy Norton. And with that, thank you all for listening to the Working Tools Podcast. Goodbye.